It's now been 4 days since the St. Louis Blues tendered offer sheets to Oilers defenseman Philip Broberg and Oilers forward Dylan Holloway. Now that I've had some time to gather my thoughts, in this video I'll just be giving you my thoughts on the whole situation and personally just tell you what I would like the Oilers to do. So, if you guys are new to the channel, thank you for all the support. We were just at like 5,000 subs, and then with the last video, we're at 5,100 subs. So let's keep the subs going, guys. You're absolutely crushing it. Still, just a significant amount of you guys are not subscribed to the channel, but you keep on coming back. So help your boy out and see if we can get to 6,000 subs like that. And with that out of the way, oh yeah, also drop a comment because I literally read every single comment on the channel. So drop a comment. I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think the Oilers should do? Clearly, the Oilers, these players, they signed these, so does that mean they even want to play for the team? Would you like it if they came back, or would you be pissed if they came back? So drop a comment down below. I do read every single one. Leave a like, and huge news at the end of the video if you want to stay to that. I know I've been teasing it for a little bit now, but stay to the end of this video. Got some huge news still, and it's exciting. Okay, yeah, so here's what I know. There's two things that I know. Apparently, just in the hockey ops, the biz, some of the guys, they were talking about it. The Oilers management have come out and said we're not scrambling, we're not nervous, but of course they're going to say that. Do I believe that? No, obviously they're scrambling. This is totally just, they were not expecting this at all, right? And it's kind of bad. It's bad. You look at it in hindsight, it's like, oh, the Oilers maybe shouldn't have signed all the players that they did. Because these don't really happen so often. And I think if Kenny Holland was the GM, he probably wouldn't have signed Victor Arvidsson. He probably wouldn't have signed Jeff Skinner. He probably wouldn't have signed a few guys, because that's the NHL. You know, this stuff, it doesn't happen often, but it still can happen. And Kenny Holland, he's been in the biz, since like the 1990s? He's been in the NHL forever, right? So he's got the experience, and Jeff Jackson doesn't have that much experience in the NHL. So he's learning, and what also I do know, and I learned this week, Doug Armstrong, the GM of the St. Louis Blues, is buddy-buddy with Ken Holland. And we had on our show this past week Andy Strickland, who covers the St. Louis Blues. He said that they were golfing. They were golfing, literally. And he strongly believes that if Ken Holland was still the Oilers GM, this wouldn't have happened. So there is that. I just wanted to share that with you guys, just some insight of what I know a little bit. It's kind of crazy. My thoughts on it, this is what I was, I talked about in the last video, the Stan Bowman effect. Some people didn't like that. And people like, oh, like that doesn't happen. Well, I don't know about that. I said that because I believe it, and I do think there's traction to that as well. So if you don't believe me, if you disagree with me, that's totally fine. I just, regardless, this is what came out, and I honestly believe it. I honestly think if the Oilers GM was still Kenny Holland, this wouldn't have happened. It's just a respect thing. It's a respect thing. You may like him, you may not like him. He may did an okay job. I think he did I'd rate him an A. I think he did an A as the Oilers GM. But one thing for sure, he's got some damn respect around the whole NHL, and that's one thing the new guy doesn't really have. So I'll say that. But yes, Oilers management has come out and said behind the scenes that we're not scrambling. We're totally okay. Everything's going to be fine. I don't know if that's the case. So now to my opinion, what would I like to see happen going forward? This is tough. I originally was 50-50. Actually, I was more leaning towards you got to let one of them go. But the more and more I've been thinking about it, you've got to try. You've got to do everything in your power to keep these guys. And that could be a hot take. Drop a comment, like I said. But personally, there's risk. There's huge risk if you sign both these guys, especially especially the Dylan Holloway one. I think that's fine. Like, I don't think that's nearly as much as an overpay as Philip Broberg is. Obviously, it came out, I don't know if there's any traction to this, but it came out saying Philip Broberg's camp was originally asking for $1.8 million. That was before the St. Louis came in and was like, oh, we'll give you 4.6. So obviously he's like, okay, yeah, that's way more enticing. I'm going to do it. That's almost triple from what I was asking. But after giving it a lot of thought, you just have to. You have to. And I know there's risk. So just talk about the Philip Broberg one. If he signs that and he doesn't, you kind of look good. The bad side of things, it's kind of like the Darnell Nurse effect. You sign a huge contract and you never quite live up to it. There is that risk. But personally, I would rather have that than him leaving him becoming an absolute stud in St. Louis, where defense is kind of thin. You got Justin Falk, who's definitely on the latter half of his career. Colton Parayko, kind of the same thing. He peaked and he's kind of fallen down a little bit. And then Torrey Krug, who's had injuries the last few summers. Or he's just, not the last few summers, but he's been dealing with some injuries. And then you got Philip Broberg, who was a high pick, all the skill in the world. And you saw, and that's where this is the big risk, is because you saw what he was able to do in the playoffs this year. It was a small sample size, but who knows? What if that is just, he's just scratching the surface? And I really do think that is the case. There are some times you see players, though, just absolutely crush it in the playoffs, and then the next season, they are just nothing. Devontae Smith-Pelly is a player I think of when I think of that, when he played for the Caps, when they won the Cup. He just absolutely crushed it. And I think the next season, he had more goals in the playoffs that year than he did the whole next season, then he retired. You look at Fernando Pisani as well. Obviously, if you're an Oilers fan, you know just how dominant he was in the playoffs in 2006. And then the next year, I think he had just the same amount of goals as he did in the playoffs as well. So it's crazy. That does happen, but I don't know, man. There was something about Philip Broberg. I was just sold on his playoff stint this year. And I said this at EST. I work for Edmonton Sports Talk. Definitely go give us, just check us out. If you like all things sports, we're an online radio station. We talk sports every single day. And I've said this before, but Philip Broberg, if you were to tell me when he was sent down way back in October of last year, that he'd be brought up, he'd take Vinny Desharnais out of the lineup, and he'd be riding shotgun, or not riding shotgun, but there's one play, I remember it was in the Stanley Cup final, he's skating up with Connor McDavid, and he's like tapping, he wants the puck, he's wanting it. You'd never see that with Vinny Desharnais, and that's just like sheer confidence, man. Like, he's confident and he wants, that was kind of like I took it personally, I want to show these guys what I can do. And I think if he goes elsewhere, he's going to be like, he's just going to keep that chip on his shoulder and he's going to be like, they should have signed me. I'll show you guys what I can really do. And I think just for the sake of Oilers fans, just of the franchise and everything about that, I can just see it. If the Oilers let him go, he becomes an absolute stud. The Oilers fans will just get crapped on for years, being like, oh, remember when you could have signed him for 4.5, but you didn't think he'd turn out to anything? Well, I bet you regret that, right? So that's kind of why. And I honestly foresee that happening more than him being signed with Edmonton and sucking. I really do. And at the end of the day, it's a 2-year contract, and after year one of that contract, if you do sign it, you can trade him. That's what I ended up finding out. Someone dropped that comment in my last video saying, "Oh, well, he has to play for a year before you could trade him." So that's my thoughts on the whole thing. You have to. And as for Dylan Holloway, I'd sign that. That would probably, I don't think that's an overpay at all. I think he could be like a 40, 50 point player. And if he's putting up those numbers, then you're getting pretty good bang for your buck. But just on the Broberg side of things as well, like, the Oilers are top heavy with forwards, obviously. Defense, not so much. They got Bo Akey in the minors. He was obviously injured this year and didn't really get to see what he could do and what he can be. So Philip Broberg is really kind of the future, and you can't let a guy like this go, especially for a second-round pick, especially when you've just spent so much time in developing this player, and now he's ready. He's ready for that next big step. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit expensive, but you have to keep him. You have to keep him. That's my thoughts, guys. Drop a comment down below. There is obviously some drama, because if the Oilers do sign him at $4.5 million, Kane's going to have to go on LTIR, and they're going to have to either trade CC or Kulak, which sucks, because those guys, I like for the most part, I like Kulak a little bit more. But not only that, he would be the third highest paid defenseman, and then you got Evan Bouchard, who's like, what the heck? Like, I just had a career year, best offensive scoring season for a defenseman in so long for the Oilers, and this guy's getting paid. He's got like what, just a handful of games in the NHL, hasn't even played a full season, and he's making $600K more than me. Yeah, so that's not going to sit well with Bouchard, and then they're in quite the conundrum. It's honestly a lose-lose situation. Well, no, it's a crappy situation. It really is. The Blues, but credit to them. I don't mind this. It's good conversation, and quite frankly, I wish more teams would do this, because it is exciting. I like it, and it sucks at this time. It's at the expense of the Oilers, but I do think that they get these done, and if they don't get both of them done, You know, Broberg, I'm pretty sure he's the odd one out. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see, but they got time's ticking. So you got 3 weeks, or you got 3 days left. Drop a comment down below. What would you like to see happen? If you're new to the channel, thanks for all the continued support, guys. You're absolutely crushing it. I appreciate it. And the big announcement that I've been waiting to say, I'm going to keep on waiting a little bit more. So yeah, I probably won't announce it to the end of the month. So 13 days here. Guys, this is huge. I'm so excited for this, and yeah, just stay tuned, please. Very cool. I'm going to be hyping it up for the next few videos. So yeah, drop a comment. What do you think it is? What do you think it is? That's all I got for this one. Don't be average when you can be above average. I'll see you in the next one. Peace! And this just in, the Edmonton Oilers have traded for forward Vasily Podkolzin of the Vancouver Canucks for a 2025 4th-round pick. Initial thoughts, okay, so I'm just editing this video right now, and of course this news broke, but it looks like, does that mean Dylan Holloway's gone? I mean, yeah, I mean, that's exactly what this looks like. I don't know why they'd have interest in this player. Look, his rookie season with the Canucks, just some insight on the player. He actually popped off. Well, I shouldn't say popped off, but he looked pretty good. He put up some respectable numbers, and those were career numbers for him. He hasn't quite found his game at the NHL level, and even down in the AHL as well. So I remember when this guy was in the World Juniors, he captained Russia in 2020, and he was an absolute stud. I was like, God damn it, looks like the Vancouver Canucks have an absolute stud on their hand. Obviously, that hasn't turned out to be the case. So insight on a player, yeah, he's not a bad player. He does have some, I think he does have a lot more to give, for sure, than what we've seen. But I mean, what does this mean? I think this means that the Oilers are putting all their eggs in one basket with Philip Broberg. It looks like Dylan Holloway might be the one out, and that's why Vasily Podkolzin's coming in. That's the only way, that's the only reason I can make of this. Like, I don't know why the Oilers would have done this trade. So unless they find him as an asset and they could trade him, you know, as a sweetener, I don't know. So this is kind of a curveball. Was not expecting this at all. But what are your guys' thoughts on this trade? Does this mean Dylan Holloway is as good as gone? Drop a comment down below. What are your thoughts? As always, guys, thanks for all the continued support. You're absolute beauties. Don't be average when you can be above average. Peace.